Hi everyone, thank you for joining me and Jessica today on this webinar. Top news from Gradcracker this week is that we still have lots and lots of roles going live, and we continue to welcome new employees to the site. We also have lots of opportunities with urgent deadlines, 500 different jobs which will be closing for applications at the end of October, 500 jobs with multiple opportunities. So now is a time to apply. On today's webinar, we welcome Arup. So thank you very much, Arup, for joining us today. We're joined by Becca, who's the Early Careers Specialist, Melissa, who's been at Arup for only a few weeks, Abdul, who has been there for 7 months, and Janvi, who's a more experienced graduate. Arup has been working with Gradcracker now for over 13 years, and today we're going to be hearing from Melissa, Abdul, and Janvi all about their experiences. Melissa will have more of a focus on the recruitment process, and Janvi and Abdul about their experiences as graduates. So let's start with you, Becca. So could you introduce yourself to the audience and tell the students a little bit more about you and your role and involvement with early careers?
Sure. Thank you very much for having me. So I'm Becca. I'm an early careers recruiter at Arup, and I'm part of a really small and mighty team of recruiters. So there's 5 of us in the UK who manage the recruitment for all of our graduate, internship and apprenticeship vacancies in the UK. So we work with hiring teams across Arup to promote their roles so that we can go through to universities, open office events, campus events, etc. And we manage the recruitment process from shortlisting right through to offer stage. So we work really closely with candidates throughout the recruitment process, particularly around assessment centre stage, just to ensure everyone is fully prepared.
Perfect. And give the audience who are watching an overview of Arup if you can.
Sure. So Arup is a global consultancy which specialises in engineering, design and the wider built environment. So it's dedicated to sustainable development, and it's really unique in the consulting marketplace because it's owned by trusts. So that means that the beneficiaries are Arup's employees. So all of Arup's employees receive a share of the firm's operating profit each year, and Arup is also not on the stock market.
Yeah.
Arup, in terms of graduate recruitment, Arup recruits on average around 600 graduates, interns and apprentices in the UK each year. And we have roles across a wide range of disciplines, from structural, electrical, mechanical engineering through to ecology, sustainability, project management, etc. So there really is something for everyone. So although we're a firm centred around engineering and the built environment, we also recruit from non-STEM backgrounds for our STEM roles. We hire from all sorts of kind of degree disciplines, as long as you have a passion for sustainability and the built environment.
Yeah, absolutely. So lots of opportunities, lots of roles open to everybody. So all our STEM students on Gradcracker can apply to the Arup opportunities, which leads perfectly on to my next section of the webinar. So right now on the Arup Company Hub on Gradcracker, they are open to their applications for their graduate opportunities. And so there's nearly 40 opportunities in total. And as we all know by now, 40 opportunities means multiple people per opportunity can apply and will be, can apply to the positions. So like Becca just mentioned, there's lots and lots of choice on there at the moment. So the roles include things like rail, sustainability, building services, highways, acoustics, water, digital advisory, and many, many more. So there is definitely something for you. The full details of the roles, including locations, can be found on the job descriptions on the hubs on Gradcracker. The undergraduate opportunities, so the placements, internships, will be opening on the 7th of December, and also the degree apprenticeships will be opening at the end of November. So make sure you go to the Arup Hub and follow them to be alerted to the placements and opportunities when they do open. So speaking of the hub, make sure you get there after this webinar. There's lots and lots of information on there that you can head over to and thoroughly research Arup before you apply to their positions. So make sure you go, follow, apply, and find out even more about them. So Becca, coming back to you now, so thinking from an early careers point of view, why are recruiting grads, interns, degree apprentices so important to Arup?
Sure. So graduates now are our future leaders, future experts in their fields. So we see fresh perspectives, kind of diverse thought, often fresh out of uni. They'll be exposed to all the latest theories, practices, technologies, etc. And of course, coming straight out of uni, they'll want to put what they've learned into practice. So this is a huge benefit to Arup as an organisation. It helps the firm evolve and always remain experts in our field. And of course, kind of younger generation and those who have just graduated from uni are often more kind of agile, maybe quicker to adapt and more open to learning new things as well. So that helps the firm stay ahead of the curve. And those who have been with Arup maybe a little bit longer can learn a lot from our early careers cohorts as well.
Yeah, definitely. And what would you say the unique points of Arup that students might not know about and why they should apply?
Well, I mentioned one already, just around it being a trust-owned firm, which I think, as I said, it makes it really unique in the marketplace. So in terms of actually having shares into the operating profit, but it also means that you are an Arup member, so everyone has a say in the future of the business, which I think is a big selling point. The other one is just the focus on sustainability. It's at the heart of absolutely everything we do. There's no kind of business choice that's made without sustainability being considered, and this goes for all of our projects and what we agree to work on as well.
Yeah, perfect. We're going to find out a little bit more about those projects later on. But for now, Becca, thank you very much for that introduction. Let's go now and meet the panel and just find out a little bit more about them. So Melissa, I'm going to come to you first. I know you've only been at Arup for a couple of weeks, but tell everybody where you went to university and also what did you study?
So hi, I'm Melissa. I went to Bristol University and I studied electrical and electronic engineering.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Melissa. Janvi?
Hi, I'm Janvi. I went to University of Oxford. I studied integrated masters in general engineering.
Lovely. And Abdul?
Hi, my name is Abdul and I went to the University of Leeds and studied aerospace engineering.
Fantastic. Lots of different universities, lots of different backgrounds now. And onto the quick fire round. I think Becca, Melissa gave your fact away, but we'll I saw you nodding and smiling, so I was just like, I hope you get another one. Coming to you, Becca, tell us about your top fact about Arup.
So my top fact, it's quite a funny one, is that after 10 years, so a 10-year anniversary at Arup, you will receive a bar of silver. And this goes back to the first person's 10-year anniversary, where someone's assistant was sent out to purchase something with a budget, and this is what they came back with. So that's remained a tradition throughout. So that's what you receive on your 10-year anniversary at Arup.
Wow, love that. Didn't know that until today. Thank you very much, Becca. And Melissa?
So you can go to any Arup office in the country and work from there. So for example, next week I'm going to visit my sister over the weekend, and then I won't go back on the Sunday night. I'll stay on the Monday, work in the Arup office in London, and then get the train up afterwards.
Lovely. Before in this prep session, me and Jess were just mentioning we've been to Arup in Manchester, Birmingham, and London.
Gorgeous.
A lot of your offices. Thanks very much for that, Melissa. Janvi, on to you.
Mine is that Arup was founded by someone called Ove Arup, which he was an engineer as well as a philosopher, and that kind of creates the people first culture at Arup, which I think is hard to picture when you're not working at a company, but definitely once you're in it, you can tell that they look at you as a person and not just an employee, which is really nice.
Love it, definitely. Thank you very much. Abdul?
My fun fact, in Arup we have this thing called Invest in Arup. So like we said, we're employee owned. So a part of our profits are left as this research pot. And if you have an idea which can contribute to the business needs and you can draft a proposal, you can go and they'll allocate a budget for you to sort of research what you want to. So it's a good way for you to grow personally in career as well as for the company to grow as well.
Fantastic, perfect introduction. Jess, I'm going to hand over to you.
Brilliant, thanks, Carla. So Melissa, I'm going to come to you first. So my question to you is, could you tell us a bit about your current role? But I know it's hard for you to kind of answer this one, because like I say, the process and everything you've been doing at Arup has only kind of lasted us 4 or 5 weeks. Is it week 5 you're in?
I started on the 4th of September. So we're getting through it now.
Getting through it now, yeah. So what's life like for you at Arup, at just starting, settling in? Tell us what life's been like for you.
It's been really good. I've been integrated really well into the team, put on a lot of different kind of projects. So I'm in the building services sector doing electrical engineering.
Yeah.
And I've been put on a range of projects so far. So one example is Toronto Airport. They're redoing the runway lights. So we're not just doing like projects within the UK, we do them internationally as well.
Right. Okay. Wow. So kind of looking back almost the last 12 months, you were probably applying about this time last year.
Yeah.
Can you believe that you are now here helping design the runway lights at Toronto Airport?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Responsibility.
Yeah.
I bet that is an incredible feeling for you.
Yeah, definitely. And you do get the support you need, but you also get like given your tasks and expected to do them. So you're not sort of being like babied through it or everything. You're doing actual work.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Melissa. Let's talk about that as well in terms of kind of that what say a recruiter would call like the onboarding process. So, you know, what has that been like for you? And, you know, again, you've been handed quite a good, exciting project to work on already. But yeah, what was the feeling like when you're given these projects? Do you feel like you've got that support? And what's the kind of team like that you're working in as well?
Yeah, definitely. So within each project is so different. But for like this example, the Manchester engineers that are working on it, there's only a few of us. So I will always be working with someone on a particular task and always get that support I need if I've got questions or anything.
Yeah, definitely. And do you feel like you've come up against any kind of concerns just yet, and you were maybe in a situation where you think, oh, I don't know the answer to this, what do I do? And how did you kind of go about tackling that situation?
Yeah, sometimes. Well, for example, because Toronto's 7-8 hours behind, sometimes I'm not going to get the answer I need. We've got loads of different support mechanisms. So within engineering, we have technical forums, so I can just post on a Teams channel. I was a bit scared at first to ask a stupid question, but someone will get back to me across the country. And then even now, even though I've only got a bit of experience, I'll be replying to some other people if they've got questions and I know the answer.
Yeah, do you know, and that's what it's like now. It's getting started, is it? Once you've started, you're creating that little bit of a network. You've got someone to ask. It builds after that. So it'll be exciting to see where you'll be at, say, this time next year. You know, how your confidence will be, and you'll be working through these projects like, you know, easy. So well done, Melissa. So Janvi, I'm going to come to you next. If you could tell us a bit about your current role and what life is like for you at Arup.
Yep, so I'm a grad +1 electrical engineer in building services. So that just means I started just over a year ago. And yeah, in my team, I'm in the London office, and the London office is split kind of into 4 teams. And that's based mainly on the types of projects that we do. So in my team, it's mainly commercial projects and rail projects. I've mainly only had an experience in the commercial side of things. That's a lot of office refurbishments and like decarbonisation studies on like how we can decentralize and decarbonize the like current offices in London, because it's quite a big issue as like buildings are trying to move away from gas into electricity. As electrical engineers, we have to make sure that we've got the capacity to do that and make it happen. So yeah, I think I can very much mirror what Melissa's saying from a year ago, and it does very much still feel like I'm still learning. But I think exactly what she said is you're never really without support. I think the main difference a year on is that you don't really have a direct buddy helping you out on each project that you're on, but you still have the network of buddies that you have had over the last year, and you can always go to anyone in Arup at all for any help in your projects day to day.
Yeah, definitely. Am I right in thinking at Arup you've got, though, is it reverse mentoring?
It's kind of, so when you start, you have a buddy who helps you with both just like admin side of stuff, and then they're usually on your project as well. So they'll be your direct point of call. But I wouldn't say there's like a necessarily set reverse mentoring process, but anyone can ask anyone for help. So sometimes you have more senior people coming to you, sometimes it's the other way around, but it's very much just like, if you have a question, just ask. And someone will help you.
Absolutely. So Janvi, going back to kind of your initial attraction then to Arup, because, you know, Becca, you mentioned you're looking for candidates that have got an interest in sustainability and, you know, that passion, that drive to, you know, to think about the future and the changes that are coming our way. So was that an attraction for you then, Janvi, to apply to Arup initially?
I think definitely. As I said, I did a general engineering degree, so I hadn't been specialised at uni and kept it quite broad. And I think I'm still an electrical engineer at Arup, but you do get exposed to like all the other elements of a building and how it's designed, and all the projects are so different. But the focus being sustainability, I think, kind of just brings that all together as a whole. So you can take all your experience in all the other areas, but the main goal is the same. And yeah, I think that definitely resonates when you're talking about, especially the early level project discussions. You can tell that everyone is quite aligned in the values that you're trying to achieve with each project, which is really important.
Which is really good. So Janvi, you've mentioned obviously the last 12 months, you've focused more on kind of the commercial side projects and things like that. So is that a decision that you made? Is that something that you wanted to do? Or could you have taken different paths and be exposed to different projects, but you kind of have that drive and that focus in that particular area?
I think definitely initially when you start, it's more just what there's available, and they don't know you that well yet, so they put you on where there's resourcing, but you can absolutely guide that. So we have a resourcing team per like small discipline, and it's very much up to you to voice where you want your career to go and what kind of things you want to learn. So I think, yeah, I'm now at a stage after having been there a year where I have a bit of a clearer picture of the projects I'd like to be on, which is why I'm doing a bit more of the decarbonisation studies. And yeah, I would quite like to work a bit more in rail. It's more just to like make sure you're getting a broad perspective of everything initially, so that you can make those decisions slightly later on in your career. Yeah.
And that's the beauty of doing a grad program like this, isn't it? It's trying to get that experience to understand, you know. And I think sometimes students, you know, when they are applying to these opportunities, it's all right kind of still not to know just yet, isn't it? I think there's that worry of you need to know everything, you've got to know exactly where you want to be in the next 10 years, but it's okay because this is exactly what the program's all about. So for you, Janvi, you know, have you kind of jumped from team to team over the last year, or have you kind of also kind of stayed within a similar team?
So the grad, I'd say with Arup, it's not really like a program per se, but you're a grad for about 2 years. And within that, they have certain things, especially as building services engineers, where you do rotations into different teams or with different companies just to learn a bit more. So one of those things is you do an internal rotation into any team that you like in Arup, just to get an idea of how they work and how you can like maybe work with them in your day-to-day life as well. So I did that rotation into the sustainability team in London as well. And that was looking at a lot of like whole life carbon calculations and the kind of legislation related around that. And the main aim of that was to try and see how normal building services engineering can be tied in with specifically sustainability projects. And yeah, so that's just an example of what you can do, but you can do it into anything. You can go into like the water team, you can go into the I don't know, like infrastructure team. There's like so many options. So that's like within the first 2 years, and then at the end of the 2 years, they at least in the London office, they do something called grad swap. So my team, the commercial and rail team, will swap their grads with maybe the arts and culture team or the data center team.
Oh, really?
And then that gives you a chance to really get exposed to like other types of projects. But usually within the first 2 years, you stay within your team, and you can do like little placements outside of that, but you're still within your main focus team.
Interesting. So if you were to do that grad swap, how long would you be in that role for? In that,
as long as you like, again.
Oh,
So
really? Right.
yeah, after the 2 years you rotate, but your career direction, again, it's up to you. You just have to voice where you want to go and like why you want to do that, and usually as long as there's space for you, then it's okay. Yeah.
I'm going to kind of ask this sort of to all of you, I guess, but in terms of becoming chartered as well in the future, you know, are you thinking about that personally, Janvi? Is this something that you know you're wanting to do, and is this why you kind of trying to expose yourself to different things and thinking about the future in that way as well? Is that
it's on the horizon still, I'd say. Yeah, as like a grad plus one, you're still quite early on. It's usually something that you do maybe after like 4 to 5 years of experience, but it's kind of in the back of your mind, making sure you're getting that exposure to diverse projects, making sure you're doing like the training necessary. But you also have a mentor for that as well that's assigned to you as soon as you start. So Melissa would probably have one already. And yeah, they make it very clear what kind of things you need to do along the way, but it's not necessarily something you're directly preparing for, because it does naturally happen as you stay in the role for a few years.
Perfect. Brilliant. Great stuff. We'll come back to you in a bit more detail, Janvi, about projects and again, the exciting stuff that you've done over the last year. But Abdul, I'm going to come to you next. Similar kind of question. What is life like for you at Arup, and what's your current role like at the moment?
Yeah, so my current role is structural mechanical engineer, which is not very clear as to what I do. But so my team usually works on a lot of variety of different things. So within the main team, there are sort of disciplines, which
Okay.
include there's moving structures, there's seismic design, there is also an automotive team, which was actually a surprise to me when I joined because I always thought of Arab as like just a structural company, but I didn't know that they actually do a lot of automotive work, which is something I'm actually working on right now. But yeah, for me, my role, like keep in mind 7 months experience. So I've actually had a lot of different projects in that time. I've gone through like 4 different projects, and it's been quite an interesting time because I don't feel like any project was the same as the last one. I've always learned something new.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I'll say is it wasn't like whenever I was working on a project, it wasn't just like I was being told what to do. It was almost like you were part of the process. So we were sort of, in this example, we were designing sort of wind mitigation. And so in a lot of those meetings, it's quite often it's like, oh, what do you think? What do you think what you could do? And what would you design and test? And then we would test those designs and actually present them to the client. And that was something that's really stuck with me. It's like it doesn't matter how early you are, whether you're a grad or apprentice or you're senior, everyone's input is very valued. And that's something that I really enjoy about Arup.
Yeah, and it seems as though, from what you've said already just in the first 20 minutes,
Mm,
whether it be a project or it's kind of the whole ethos of Arup, that's what it's
mm,
all about. It's about getting everyone involved. Everyone's got a
mm,
voice. Everyone wants to listen, which is really, really interesting how that even kind of filters right in through to day-to-day projects and everything else.
mm,
So Abdul, you've mentioned automotive. So
mhm.
yeah, talk a bit about that. And yeah, I've never expected you to say that either. So what have you been working on there?
So we sort of look at non-linear analysis, essentially, was crash analysis of vehicles. So sort of looking at the impact of how to design these vehicles to be more safe,
Right.
which is something I'm still getting to grips with. So I might say some things that are not exactly 100%, but it's essentially, I think everyone's at least once watched a video of a car going ramming into a wall just for
Mhm.
safety testing. So it's essentially simulating those tests over time. So when the actual model gets built, it is within certain safety parameters. So that's sort of the work we do, sort of looking at this is actually a project I'm working on right now, is like human body models where you have this model of a human being with like the whole skeletal structure and every internal organ and muscle, and then you look at sort of the impact of the crash and whether how safe was it, how did the safety systems work properly, did they when they deployed, what was sort of the injury risk to said person depending on age. So that's sort of thing we do within automotive.
Gosh, I didn't realize again that Arup would be involved in that kind of consultancy as well and working with, in the automotive sector. That's incredible. So in your kind of day-to-day project then, is it quite hands-on? Do you actually get to see and kind of see these crashes and then look at the data, and are you quite hands-on with it, or is it kind of off-site that you'll see?
It's all sort of simulation work, so it's all
Okay.
computer-based work. So there's it's a lot of reading papers and sort of looking through a lot of data. And it's really something that, well, as an aerospace engineer, when I did aerospace engineering, I never really thought that I'd be doing this kind of
No,
work, and
yeah.
which is like a completely different field. So like I said, I did aerospace engineering, so it's not something that's very closely related to like biomedical stuff. But I find that there's a lot of papers that we have available internally, a lot of resources, and it's just learning something really new and something really unique. And it's been so much fun
Yeah,
just trying to
definitely.
figure it all out. But yeah.
Do you know what? And this is again why I find, hearing your story is so exciting, because from personally, my point of view at the moment, speaking to students at the moment, you know, doing a lot of, you know, speaking to final year students, telling them all about the amazing opportunities that companies like Arup have. And it's like, Melissa, you're doing it now. Where you were this time last year to where you are now, and the experiences you're going to have. And Abdul, you're just a perfect example of that. You know, you didn't realize that you'd be doing this, doing the discipline, doing, you know, the degree that you've done. You'll now be working on projects like this. To me, I just find it so exciting. Imagine where you're going to be in 5-10 years time. So yeah, really, really good, really, really interesting. So Melissa, I know you are kind of, again, as we've said, really early stage of your kind of journey so far. But I don't know if you want to kind of add anything to kind of what you've been up to. I know we kind of touched upon it, but is there a particular experience that you've had that you feel like you want to talk about?
So literally last night I was on a site at the Barclays Centre in Cheshire, and I'm not on that project, but someone in my team said this would be interesting for you to see. We'll count it as training time. So I got to go and watch some fire alarm testing, and it's just useful to see in context what a site looks like, what we might be looking out for, and like there was a bit like a cross discipline with mechanical there as well, so you get to see what they would be looking out for. So that's really interesting. So I've been on site at this Barclays site a few times in the last few weeks, and I've already been on another site visit to Hull. That was literally in my second week. I'd got put on that project as well. So it's not all just office based. It is all really interesting. You get to actually see stuff in real life. Like at uni, we might have just been learning the theory, and you can actually see it practically.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I can imagine that, you know, getting that practical experience is, you know, fantastic. So go back to last night then. So was that expected? So you start your day yesterday morning. Did you know that that was going to happen last night? Or was it quite...
Yeah, I got told about it last week.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you don't get put on it that quickly.
Yeah. So in terms of then that experience, so you mentioned about putting it down as training time. So what did you mean by that? And yeah, how does that work?
So I think how it works is we get like an allotted amount of training time. When we have these things called timesheets, and you fill it out how many hours you're doing. And so you can, when you're early in your career, you're expected to do a more training than you would later on. But we have a really good training system at Arup with like online modules and stuff, as well as in-person things. I'm doing a training course in London for a whole week. That's coming up in November. So that counts as well, and we learn different aspects of what's to do with the job.
Okay. So how would you find these training programs then, Melissa? You kind of encouraged to find these, you know, in your own time on an internal system, or do you kind of get presented them and say, right, would you like to go on this? Would you like to go on that?
I think it's a mix. So some are mandatory, like this course that we're doing next month. But then, for example, the Toronto Airport thing, that's quite niche, I'd say.
Right.
So I know where the we call it Moodle, the hub is, and so I can go on there and look specifically for stuff relevant for my project, watch some videos, and like learn how to do whatever task I've been assigned.
Yeah. So then you would just then log that time. So then again, you could speak to your mentor about that. Yeah, how does it work with your mentor then, Melissa? How often do you check in with them? And yeah, what is the mentor really there for you? And you know, what kind of conversations are you having with them?
So my mentor for my chartership, or my buddy? Which one?
Your buddy, sorry.
My buddy.
Yeah.
Okay. So my buddy, maybe just in my case, it's quite informal, but that's quite a good level for it to be. It helps me ease in quite quickly. And that's so almost pastoral in my case. So I'll just, if I've got any questions about something like how do I print in the office, I'll ask him or something. But we did have a check-in the other day, because that was sort of like a month and a half in. And he was like, just wanted to check up on you. So it's quite an informal process, but they're there for that support if you need them.
Yeah. And when were you assigned that buddy then, Melissa? Was you assigned that person before you started Arup?
Yeah.
Okay.
Quite a bit before. My team leader messaged me and put me in contact with them, and then we arranged a visit to the office before the official start date, so I could meet some of the team and get a sense of like where the office was, what the culture's like, and just stuff like knowing how to get through the barriers when you first get through the
Yeah.
office. Like,
Oh.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think you know, I'm sure Carla and Becky, you'll back me up on this, but Arup's, you know, kind of renowned now for having a good system in place. You know, once you've offered a student or a graduate position, you know, keeping in contact with them, making sure they feel comfortable. Again, just from the experience I've had with Arup in the past and speaking to you all, it seems as though you really do look after you know, the student or the graduate once you've said yes to them. And we're going to talk a bit about that a bit later on, aren't we, Carla?
Yeah, what I've always liked about Arup though, it's kind of even before, like Melissa, you've just mentioned, it's before you start. So do you know, when you've got the job, you know, you're elated, you're dead excited, and then it's, oh, you might have a couple of months or even a year before you actually start, and it's good to have that link into Arup and to ask those silly questions. I know about the barriers at Arup, I struggle with those, don't we, Jess? But it's good to have that link in that period of time as well, that support really.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's nice to feel like you know someone before you get to those barriers. Absolutely.
Face.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So, Janvi, I'm going to come to you. Yeah. So a bit more about a project or an experience so far that you've had at Arup.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is kind of covered in what we're speaking about with projects. But as I was saying, with the kind of flexible structure in your first 2 years, one of the other things that they get engineers to do is a manufacturer placement. And that's basically when we're designing things day to day, we don't actually do the design of the equipment that we're installing. We just specify what type of equipment we need. So that equipment is manufactured by someone else, and we're allowed to go and visit those factories and have a tour and like get a bit more of an insight into like how that design is actually done, so that we can like understand fully exactly what it is that we're telling clients that they need. And yeah, so I went on one in July, went up to Leeds for about 4 days, and it was really nice. Met some other electrical engineers from other offices around the UK as well, who are also on the same placement. And yeah, it's just nice to get an idea of like the bigger picture of what it is that you're putting onto a PDF drawing, how that's actually built, and why, basically. So I think that was really interesting.
In terms of confidence, you know, if you think about, you know, working for a company like Arup, you know, you've kind of touched upon it there, John V. You as a company are supposed to know the answers, or going to, you know, you're at the forefront of knowing the answer, or, you know, giving your client the right information. Do you ever find that nerve-wracking of having that confidence in yourself to make sure that you're giving the right answer and, you know, getting that technical knowledge yourself? Do you ever find it daunting?
I think it is, especially initially. Once you've done it maybe 1 or 2 times, you get a bit more used to it. But again, you're never doing it without support. And clients and also manufacturers, they're all kind of aware if you're slightly more junior, so they will be nice to you. And yeah, in terms of my experience of client contact, I've not had to do it first off without someone else in my team being there to support. So sometimes I'll have presented something, I'll get asked a question, and my manager will respond with the answer, because I won't have prepared for that. So yeah, you're kind of, you're guided along the way, and then when they feel like you're ready to like do it by yourself, then they let you. But yeah, you can always just ask for more support if you need it. It's really not a problem.
It's great as well, personal, like, you know, again, talking about that personal development. But yeah, imagine how much you've come in the last 12 months in terms of having that confidence to speak out, you know, say those things that you might not have said at the beginning. So in terms of being on site, then for you, Janvi, is that something that you've done a lot so far, or was that for you a bit of a one-off experience going to the manufacturer site?
Yeah, quite regularly. So manufacturer and client site. So manufacturer site, I've only done when I've been on specific placement, I think more because of like health and safety related to being in a factory. But site placements I've done quite a lot, not for a long time, but just for like surveys or like visiting site. I did quite a few, like what Melissa's done, where you just go and have a look at what someone else is working on, just to learn about what the systems actually look like, and what you might be responsible for designing later. But on my specific projects, again, because a lot of them are office refurbishments in London, it's a lot of retrofit. So you have to do a lot of site surveys to see what the existing system is, get a feel for the space, because it's not like you're building a building from nothing. You're not starting with a blank piece of paper. You're starting with an office building that is currently being used every day. And you need to know how to design around that, because there's still going to be people working in it while you're designing it. So that's been really interesting, like going around and doing those surveys. And I think every time you go, you'll learn something new about, or like there'll be something that becomes a lot clearer, just that you didn't even realize you didn't understand before. So it's always really helpful going on site.
I can imagine. So when you are on site then, would you typically kind of first beginning of the project spend quite a bit of time on site? Would you expect to almost be day to day, that's where you're going to be? And then once you've started to work out or is it not as straightforward as that?
It varies. I think because we're engineering consultants, a lot of what we do is like taking information that we've gathered on site and then spending a lot of time thinking about it and designing it. So a project is split up into what they call like stages, and they're like architectural stages. So what we do is we work from stages, I guess, 0 to 4, and like at the end of stage 4 you've got a complete design that's ready to be installed. It's almost like the recipe's been produced, and then after that we usually hand over to a contractor who will actually build it. So that at that stage, that's where we might be more involved on site in terms of checking that our recipe is being like cooked properly, I guess. But yeah, so you'll do what's called site snagging, which is like if, for example, as electrical engineers, we have cables that need to be installed a particular way. If we go on site, they haven't been installed properly, we then tell the contractor that they need to fix it. So yeah, at that point, we're a lot more involved in site, but before that, it's more just gathering information. So I'd say day-to-day life is still in the office, working on the design, but you're still using what you've learned from site.
At that point, you know, it must be really nice to think that you have watched this kind of cycle happen. You've gone from 1 to 4, you're at the point of doing the snag list. It must feel really, really good to look at these projects that you're working on, again, with that interest and that passion of being sustainable as well, to know that you actually are starting on a project, but you're leaving it in a better place than, you know, where you started. I can imagine it's really quite fulfilling.
Exactly, and I think as early careers, at least my experience has been, they like to keep you on a project for quite a long time, so that you see the bigger picture and you see it change. You don't just finish something and then never hear about it again. You kind of get a bit more of a complete idea of what's going on, which I think is really helpful.
And you go to work and think, I did that, you know, like it makes the world a better place, which is nice. So really, really good. So thanks, Janvi. Abdul, going to come to you. Similar question, a bit about the rotation of projects that you've been on so far, or maybe the most exciting one you've done. You've talked a lot about the automotive one, which I thought was really exciting. Any more?
Oh, so I've also actually worked on another Teams project as well, because I did aerospace. So this is the other thing that forgot to mention. It's like we get hired for particular fields, but if you have experience, you actually get to work on projects that might align. So there was one which looks at something that is called microclimate. So when you build these large towers, they have an impact on sort of the pedestrian conditions around them. So essentially what we do is we generate this environmental assessment report, which tells the counselors and the planners of how safe it is, how what's the accessibility limits that people have around it. That was one thing that I worked on, which was a very unique kind of project, at least for me, because I didn't realize how important that thing was, and especially because one of the things I realized while working on it, if it's done really well, no one will know you did anything, because it's like a very calm and nice place. But if it's done really badly, everyone notices it. So there's quite a few structures we worked on that especially with large towers, you have to consider what the ground level conditions would be, especially if you have people cycling around it, etc. You don't want to cause accidents as such. So yeah, that was something else I worked on.
So I was going to say, what projects were there? We'll have to say any names. If was it any particular buildings in?
I could say names. Sorry,
You can't.
I don't know how much I'm allowed to say.
No, don't you worry. That's absolutely fine. So in terms of that particular project, then, how long were you working on that project for? Sorry.
So that project's in the design stage. So I've already done 3 months, and we actually have a meeting next Monday about it, because I think that what Janvi said, it's not like a one and done thing.
Mm.
As work goes on, as designs develop into construction and into the actual final product, you're always sort of coming back into it again and again. So it's gonna be back up again on Monday. So
So,
yeah.
and what do you is it like? Sorry, what do you think the life cycle is going to be like for this particular project? Do you think this will be something that you'll be working on probably till this time next year as well, or is it going to be quite short?
Well,
Um,
as I think it's up to the construction phase. So as it's going through the design phases and going through all sort of all the iterations in it, um, we sort of stick with it, because at each design stage something changes, and we need to make sure that the building is built safe and it's accessible for everyone.
Mhm.
So it's an iterative process, and I think well, depending on how long the design phase lasts, it'll continue till then.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Super interesting. Next, I want to talk a bit about the completion of the grad scheme, because before we actually went live, we talked a bit about the chance to travel internationally and across the UK. So Janvi, I'm going to come to you, because you said you might have some future plans, and potentially where Arup could take you in the future. So I know we won't hold you to it. Hopefully, 5 years on anyway. But yeah, what are you thinking? What do you think the next steps for you might be?
Yeah, so they offer what's called long-term assignments, where you can go get a placement. It's kind of a placement, it's more of a transfer temporarily to any of the other offices, which in Arup could basically take you anywhere in the world. There's in the London office, we have a lot from Sydney, but people have gone to America, you can go to Europe, Canada. And the idea there is you get to like work with a completely different team of people, and often on completely different types of projects as well, because you might be working in a different climate or not in a city, and things like that, which I think would be really interesting. And Arup is very supportive of people doing that. They help you if you've got visa applications that you need. They give you a bit of a settling and allowance when you get there, and they try and make it as smooth as possible. So I think I definitely quite like to try that, just as a less scary way of moving abroad, because your job and a lot of things stay quite constant, but you're still able to experience life somewhere else, which I think would be really exciting.
And exactly, what a chance to know that that you potentially could do that in the future, at different stages of your career as well, so wherever life may take you, which is really exciting to think that. I think as well, I can imagine it almost makes you want to stay at Arup as well in the future, because you think, well, you could have 5 or 6 different careers across the next 10 years. So really exciting. Janvi, would just going back to your initial interest in why you applied to Arup. So were you obviously at Oxford? You went to Oxford University. You're now in London. Was it because you wanted to work in London, or was the appeal for you that you could again travel across the UK in your grad program?
To be completely honest, it was quite circumstance based. So I grew up in London as well.
Okay.
And yeah, there was a vacancy in London, and I applied for it, and I was quite happy to have the consistency of where I lived, at least for my first job. But definitely a big appeal of it was that you had these options and you have these opportunities, and they made it very clear from even in the interview process, especially coming from a general engineering background, applying for a specific engineering role. They made it very clear that it was quite a fluid process, and if I came here and I didn't really like electrical engineering, which I actually didn't do much of at uni, then I could always switch into another discipline or transfer teams. They said it's very much up to you, the way you drive it. And I think that happening during the interview process really made me a lot more keen to get the job. And yeah, I was really happy when I did.
Wow, that's pretty unique that as well, that how open Arup are in terms of flexibility. So God, wow, that's incredible. So well done. In terms of taking the leap, then you did it. So well done. So Abdul, sorry, I'm going to come to you. Similar kind of question. Have you got a 5-10 year plan?
Oh, well, yeah. So a lot of people from my team have actually, there've quite a few people who are on long-term assignments in various different places. So I know a few people who've gone to Germany. There's some there's 2 people in Canada. There's someone in Los Angeles as well, and it's quite a unique opportunity as well because I know someone who was actually in the Manchester office who's gone to Canada to set up the team in the Canadian office in
Oh,
Toronto.
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So for me, that's just like one of the things, like there's so many interesting projects going all around. And for me, it's like if I do get the opportunity to travel and work on something quite different and unique. So I'm always on the lookout for something like that.
Mm.
There's I think with my team, and I think with almost all of Arup, it's not just because you live in the UK, it's not just you can work on projects in the UK. I have people in the office who are working in projects from all the way from Albania to Colombia, and not just like commercial projects. There's so many different kinds of projects. Some of them look at sustainable housing, others look at sort of developing water infrastructure for vulnerable communities. So it's like there's so much going on, and like it's sometimes a bit overwhelming, but then there's always nice. It's not also like, oh, if you're a graduate, then you have opportunities. Once you're not, it's not. It's like people who decide 10 years down the line, okay, I want to have a switch. They've done it. They've switched
Yeah.
from one
Yeah.
team to another. They've gone to a different location to work. Like someone's gone to, like I said, German office. That was not while they were grad, that was sort of 10 years after they were done with being a grad.
Mm.
So it's Arup really does invest in you. And one of the things that's really striking to me is like everyone I work with, from my development manager to a lot of my project managers, they've been at Arup for like closing on 15, 20 years, and from the start of their career. So they were once upon a time grads in the offices, and they all of them have those stories. So it's like Arup really invests in you as a company, and they really help you do what you want.
Yeah. Do you know, and again, it's nice to know that you're working with people that have been at the company for that long. To say what I mean, it gives you that inspiration that if they're staying here, you know, obviously the company hasn't changed that much. You know, they're staying for the right reasons, aren't they? So it's nice to know that potentially you could have your full career at Arup, but experience so many different things and almost feel like you're having, like I say, 5, 6 different careers. It's exciting, super exciting.
Yeah, no. Sorry.
No, it's all right.
There's someone I was working with on the project, and the wind project, who's been at Arup for 40 plus years, since like the not 80s. Like they were there as pre-university, then after university, and they're still here. So it's just like there's a lot of wealth of experience to go around as well.
I wonder what the average is.
Sorry, just on that, the project I'm working on at the moment, my manager on it built it, or like did the initial concept design for building it as a grad, and is now like the senior engineer on it, and like I'm his equivalent of what he was when it was first built for retrofitting it. So yeah, people definitely stick around. Yeah.
Yeah. How amazing is that? That is absolutely incredible. And again, I think as well, again, working with people like that, because their experience and their knowledge that they'll have, you know, again, working on a project that they worked on, you've got all the answers in front of you. It must be really exciting to work with those kind of people. Yeah. Melissa, I'm going to come to you. Sorry, love, I don't want you to feel left out. It's just with you being so new. Want to talk a bit about extracurricular activities, if that's okay. And, you know, as an early grad, have you experienced anything yet that, you know, that has helped you to get to know the grads or experience something outside of your role so far?
Yeah. So definitely like straight away. So in my intake, there were about 35 of us in grads, industrial placement students and apprentices. And immediately we had like organized early careers socials and stuff, and that's food. It can be like an actual event. We've started to do stuff like badminton after work and stuff like that. And then within my team, we'll have socials as well. So it's all outside of work, still really social.
Yeah, which is so nice. Again, it just gives you a good idea of what the business is like, that you're trying to get everyone together and network and really group together. Janvi, Abdul, have you got anything to add to that? Of any particular experiences that you guys have had?
Yeah.
There's also, go for it.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, that was my fault.
No, Janvi, go ahead.
Yeah, especially in London, at least I can talk from my experience. There's a lot of like sports clubs. So I've been involved in like the climbing club, which is a very expensive thing to do in London normally, but Arup like subsidizes the entry costs, so you can go for a much more reasonable rate. And then yeah, there's like all kind of sports clubs. There's like football, netball, lacrosse, like hockey. Basically, like if you want to do a sport, you can like set up a group and do it. It feels very much like uni in that sense, where you've got the freedom to just like find people who want to do it together, and then you can usually get a bit of funding to help you out as well.
Really good stuff. Sorry, Abdul, would you want to add to that as well?
Yeah, so like Melissa mentioned, that there's a badminton. So that wasn't actually there before. That was just set up by the new grad intake because we all wanted to try and learn badminton. So like I said, it's not a overly strict process. We're talking about 4th September. They all sort of joined, and then within the next 2 weeks, we already had like a badminton sort of on every Thursday. Last week we had a board games night on Thursday. And today we have drag bingo. So it's
Bingo.
yeah
I love
uh,
it.
yeah. So it's almost like every Thursday or Friday there's something going on. And if you take the initiative, there's always Arup will always try and subsidize everything for you. It's almost it's a very, very social environment.
Definitely. I want to quickly ask about training. We've talked a lot about training already, but is there a particular training experience that someone's had so far that maybe they want to make the point before I hand back to Carla? Because I know we want to talk about the application process next, but anything?
I think
Melissa,
I've covered mine. Just it's
Jen.
quite nice when you do your placements where you get to travel. Just an added bonus is you've got like meals and hotels paid for, which can be quite a nice luxury. But yeah, I think just like traveling and like getting to experience what Arup does outside of just what we do in the office is always really fun. So
Yeah.
I would take any opportunity to do that.
There you are. Take the opportunity. It's there. You just need to take it.
Absolutely.
Handing back to you, Carla. Thanks, John V.
Abdul, you didn't mention the Christmas party.
I know.
Live. Come on, we're going to hold you to this now. So you're planning a Christmas party in just short of 2 months.
Oh yeah, it's in Manchester. Well, I've not designed this. You really put me on the spot here. But yeah,
Pressure's on.
yeah, so we do have a lot of Christmas parties. We have like a really big office one, which we are going to have in Cloud 23, if anyone is in Manchester and knows what that is, which is a really, really fancy one. And then I'm going to I'm going to organize one, which is going to be really, really bad in comparison, but there's free food and people always love free food.
It isn't. It's going to be absolutely perfect. I've got all my faith in you. And so thank you, everybody. Some really interesting experiences from all the grads who found their roles on Gradcracker. So what we're going to do now is me and Becca are going to speak about the application process. So as we mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, all of the opportunities are currently listed on the Arup Hub on Gradcracker. So make sure you go and have a look at them, thoroughly read the job descriptions before you click apply at the bottom of the job description. Once you click apply, Becca, what's next in the process?
Sure. So apply via the Gradcracker Arup Hub and it takes you straight to the application form. So there's essentially 3 stages. So application process, application form, online testing, and then if selected, the assessment centre. And the assessment centre is the final stage before a decision is made. So apply on Gradcracker, you'll be asked about your motivations for the role, of course, for Arup, what you're passionate about, and there will be full guidance on what you're looking for, what we are looking for you to cover in your answers. And then we've also got the online testing. So it's essentially aptitude testing. And why do we use these testing methods? It's a fair way of assessing different candidates' strengths regardless of educational background. So it's more like a blended assessment, which will cover numerical, verbal, and logical reasoning. And it's essentially assessing your suitability to work in the workplace. It's nothing too tricky. And we do provide a candidate preparation hub. So you'll receive a link to that where you can practice your tests as many times as you like before sitting the real thing. So if you pass those tests, you'll then reach a shortlist, and then the hiring teams will choose which candidates they want to see at the virtual assessment centre based on the application answers. So just very quickly going back to the application process, this is your time to shine as much as possible. So this is your final say, I guess, in the application before you actually reach the shortlisting stage. So obviously be succinct, but don't be modest. Like, tell us about everything that you're great at, what you're passionate about, why you're particularly passionate about the role. We're not expecting you to have all the technical knowledge, but do kind of, reach into what you've learned at university, extracurricular activities, things like that. And one more thing I wanted to cover just on the application process is you can only apply for one vacancy at a time. Now, you can have one active vacancy. Now, that's not to say that you can't start an application and think, actually, I've researched another role. I think that's perhaps more for me. That's absolutely fine. You just let us know, withdraw the application, and then begin the application process for the other role. But you can't have any more than one active application.
Right, that's really, really important. So that it goes back to even more so making sure you do your research, making sure you read the job descriptions, look at the employee profiles on Gradcracker and see what you could be doing in a couple of years' time. So good point there, Becca. And to be successful, then what top tips would you give students who are thinking about applying?
I would say it can be a nerve-wracking process, but just be honest and open about your skills. As I said, there's no need to be modest. It's your time to shine. Tell us what you're passionate about throughout the whole process. Do your research, and if you get to assessment centre stage, try not to let nerves get the better of you. So it might seem super scary, but our assessors, essentially hiring managers and potentially your future colleagues, we just want to get to know you, want to know, what makes you tick and why you've chosen Arup. And a lot of the interview process is informal as well. It's really kind of just getting to know each other. So I guess try and relax as much as possible and be yourself throughout the process.
Definitely, thank you. And Melissa, you've just recently gone through the process. So what would be your top tips to students who are thinking about applying?
I'd say look at the projects Arup have done. So this is what I did. I looked at what we've done, and for example, I'm like a big sports fan, so I was like looking at the stadiums we've designed and stuff, and like related that back to my interest, and then can relate it back to how I've played team sports and how I can work in a team. So relate it all back to that. And just now I've just worked on a small power assessment for the Women's Rugby World Cup, looking at the stadiums for that. So it's all really relevant. And like Becca just said, the assessment centre, I get quite nervous, but honestly it was just like a chat. It was almost a fun experience.
Almost. And how would you suggest students prepare for their first day at Arup?
So like we were saying before, they start the process way before day one. I think it was like 12 weeks before. Every week we got information about how the company runs, videos from current employees and stuff to read through. And they do office visits. So it's all sort of, you're guided through it. You don't really have to prepare. Just show up and be ready to learn.
Yeah, and I suppose it's all about asking questions, isn't it, as well? So in the lead up, if you have got any queries, questions, concerns, then you do have your buddy and you do have the recruitment team there that you can go back to. And so what I'm going to do now is finish off with a quick fire round about your favourite thing at working with for Arup. And Melissa, I'm going to stay with you. Tell us about your favourite thing.
My favourite thing is probably the people. So like I said before, my graduate intake was 35 of us, and we've all got on really well. So we've got a social tonight, and then tomorrow one of the grads is having a flat party for Halloween. So like that's sort of like external from work, like not organised. So we've all got on really well. So yeah.
Perfect. People is always a good one. Janvi?
I think, it's still focused on the people. I think we can't like stress that enough. It is really just like a nice atmosphere here. I think on that note, diversity wise, Arup does quite well compared to their like competitors and stuff, or our competitors rather. And as a woman, like you don't really feel like you're disadvantaged or anything, which is quite a nice expectation to have.
Perfect. Thanks, Janvi. Abdul? You're on mute, my love.
Sorry.
That's
But
okay.
I was gonna say it's the same thing. It's just the people who work at Arup are all really supportive. Especially, I think this is something I should have mentioned earlier, but I think the first week of work, I was struggling with something, and people like, oh, message this person who's like a director, and he took the time out of his day, spent like an hour trying to explain this thing to me. So it's just like, can't really stress enough how nice the people are here at Arup.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely come across in this webinar. Becca, anything else that you want to add? From the people.
Yeah, just to echo that, it's a real community feel, and you can pick up the phone to anyone, even if you've never spoken to them before, and it'll feel like you've known each other for ages. Everyone is super helpful. So I guess collaboration probably in the people.
Perfect, absolutely. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today on this Arup webinar. And don't forget, go and apply for their opportunities. Go follow and go and do your research. You can only apply to that one opportunity. So good luck when you do put your applications in. Next week, me and Jess are joined by the Science and Technology Facilities Council. So we're looking forward to seeing you all next Thursday. But for now, thanks very much, Arup. Good luck, everybody, and see you all next week.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
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 Thank you.